Thanks very much, Martin. And Robert, your words about solutions always ring true to me because, as we like to say, solar is the solution. It's one of my favorite mottos. And one of the reasons I most love working in solar energy is that every day I feel like I'm working on something that really is making a difference and that cumulatively can make a bigger difference, I think, in the short term than almost anything else at solving the climate crisis. So when I think about all the reasons I love working in solar energy, especially on a gloomy day like this, I just want to start out by reminding us all about a few of my favorite facts of solar energy. Now I see in the audience, nationally known experts from NREL who know far more about all this than I do, but one of my favorite facts for the sake of people like my nephew over there, in just 1 hour, the sun sends enough energy to our Earth to supply all of our electricity needs for an entire year. So in 1 hour, we have enough solar energy just coming freely to our Earth to power us as a whole planet for a whole year. So, if you start out with that and you think about the possibility, it's pretty remarkable. Another thing about solar is that photovoltaics is among the only energy source that doesn't use fuel to turn a turbine. Even wind energy, which I love, spins a turbine by, having the blades go around. PV is really magical. It converts photons directly into electrons, no moving parts, just sits up there and works day in, day out. Doesn't make a lot of energy on a day like today, but still makes some. My third favorite fact is that it works really well at a really tiny level, like charging your cell phone. You look around and there's all kinds of, backpacker applications where you can buy a little solar cell to charge up your devices when you're out on the trail. It works really well on your rooftop. It works really well in a community array, and it works really well in a large utility scale system. So it really scales beautifully in all those different ways. So when we look at what's going on with solar in Colorado, it's kind of a very good story, but also a very scary story. So I'm going to talk a lot today about some of the challenges ahead that we really need your help to solve. In Colorado, we're off to a really great start, but we're still only 1% of the electricity mix of Colorado, which is kind of pathetic if you think about it. So what's really going on now, I think, are a lot of very large warning signs and challenges that I'm going to get into a little bit later in my talk. Basically, the programs that were set up when we started down this road after Amendment 37 was passed have largely run their course. Our low energy prices and disappearing incentives are making it really a tough market for a lot of the members of my organization. Utilities around the state continuously throw up barriers, and I'll get specific about that. And the only real major federal incentive program for solar, called the Investment Tax Credit, is set to drastically scale back at the end of 2016, which has a lot of people worried. So at COSEIA, we're working every day on these things. Just a few things about my organization. We've been around since 1989, so we celebrated our 25th anniversary last year. Our members are, some of them are in the room, but they're all sorts of different kinds of solar businesses, from mom and pops all across Colorado to multinational corporations like Ab & Go, which has US headquarters here in Lakewood, but which is based in Spain. And we have more than 200 member companies, and we're actually the largest state solar organization in the country. We work on all kinds of programs. We work at the legislature, we work with local governments, and we spend a lot of time on regulatory dockets at the PUC, which is not a very fun place, but fortunately where a whole lot of solar policy gets worked out. We put on Solar Power Colorado, which is the region's biggest B2B solar conference. We usually have 500 people, and registration is open. In fact, there are early bird rates. You can save money if you sign up now. And we spearhead programs including solar-friendly communities and solar citizens, which I'll talk about later. So the first picture I want to show you about what's driving solar growth is familiar to many of you. This is the basic curve showing the decrease in cost of solar cells. So the cost of solar cells, crystalline, silicon, photovoltaic cells, has come down more than 100 times since 1977. And so if you look at that, it's not hard to see why solar has grown a lot more attractive. And Colorado has really taken advantage of our sun and developed our solar market. We have about 350 companies and 4,200 people work in solar. We're up to 412 megawatts or so as a state, about 9th in the nation. So that's enough to power more than 80,000 homes. We think that we can go a lot bigger. So COSEIA has set a goal called 1 million solar roofs, which is basically not just calling for rooftop solar, but all kinds of solar, but roughly 10 times as much as we have now, or 3 gigawatts by 2030. We think that's very achievable, but a lot of things will have to change for that to happen. So the installed prices continue to come down. They've dropped about 45% since 2010, and that's the installed price, not just the steep curve, which was the cells themselves. And about more than 20,000 people have connected to Excel since Amendment 37 passed, which is, a significant number. We at COSEIA have worked on bringing down the soft costs, that is not the panels, but all the permitting, all the approvals with local government. So the picture shows our first platinum solar-friendly community, which happened to be Westminster, and they got that honor by doing a whole lot of things to make it faster, easier, and less expensive for their citizens to go solar. So as a result of all these kinds of things that have been happening, solar is starting to grow. So the charts show different size solar. So the green is a large scale or utility, the red is commercial, and the blue is residential. And again, it shows, the steep curve of adoption, just as the steep curve of prices going down. And really, a lot of things are happening at different parts of the solar market. So utility scale solar, which is, large arrays. We have several of these projects, and several more actually are being built or under construction. The one in the picture here is actually a picture I took in Alamosa. You can see the Sangre de Cristo Mountains behind. These are, this one I think is a 30 megawatt project. And so Excel bought the power from a couple of these, but they just really for the first time have selected a project not because of a mandate for renewable energy, but purely on cost. So there's a project that just broke ground right near their Comanche coal plant in Pueblo that's going to be 120 megawatts. And just sort of as a touchstone about what's happening with these really big projects, there's a Nevada utility owned by Warren Buffett that's paying 3.8 cents per kilowatt for 20-year output, which is thought to be about the cheapest electricity anywhere in the country. So there's a variety of reasons why that's happening. But these big-scale projects, some of them are really cheap. And then the next big thing that's coming into play that's going to be a game changer is storage, because obviously one of the downsides of solar is when the sun doesn't shine, what do you do with the power? Storage has been one of those next year, maybe next year, maybe next year kind of stories, but really more and more people are thinking that it's about to be here and will be a game changer, probably first at these big utility scale projects. So Navigant Research, based in Boulder, a leading research firm, is talking about revenue increasing from $675 million last year to $15.6 billion. So storage is expected to be sort of the next big curve. There's also exciting stuff going on in other parts of the market. So a lot of what's happened in Colorado so far has been in Excel territory, which is by far the largest utility in the state, but we also have the bulk of the state's geography represented by rural electric associations, and they have been kind of hesitant in some ways, but I'm very bullish on the potential for solar in rural electric territories. These utilities are really much more democratic. They're owned and run by their members. And we worked with them this year. It was kind of surprising because normally they sort of had seen the solar industry and their environmental friends as being opponents, but we worked very closely with them on a compromise that kind of provides them a little more flexibility in how they can meet their renewable energy standards. And we're hoping that it will lead to more projects in rural Colorado that are actually on their distribution line, so sort of mid-sized projects that can really help them out. And then the other side of the market that's been really almost totally neglected for years is the original kind of solar that some of you, maybe got your start in back in the 80s, solar thermal, the simplest technology of all, using the sun to heat water. I mean, what's more obvious than that? There's a lot of reasons why that technology has fallen off the radar, primarily because of the low cost of natural gas. But I'm happy to tell you that we, COSEIA, have worked really hard for almost a year now and just won a big grant from the State Energy Office to begin to pilot some replicable cost models. So we're going to try to actually figure out how to do solar thermal in rural Colorado largely, where people heat with expensive propane or electricity, and to sort of set up a pilot that isn't going to rely on rebates, because we don't really expect rebates to be around forever. So we're beginning to work on that sort of as we speak. And then really community solar is a Colorado big success story. We have completely led the nation in this notion of shared solar. So we passed the first law allowing so-called solar gardens in 2010, and there are now 14 of them operating all over the state, including here in Jefferson County. Most of them are sold out. They allow individuals, businesses, and a lot of local governments have found them very appealing because of the rate structures. So you can buy into these gardens and not have solar on your roof, but buy into a shared project. The law that we worked on last year successfully allows people in contiguous counties to buy into these projects. So it used to be that if you lived in Jeffco, you had to buy into a Jeffco project. It was a special problem in Denver because of very high land costs and lack of availability. So the fact that we have this contiguous county provision now means that if you live in Denver, you can buy into a solar garden in Adams or Arapahoe or Jeffco or Boulder. So we expect it to really, help even build the market more. And the program was just approved for pretty major expansion in, you can read the counties up there. It had been about 6 megawatts a year. Now we're going to 30 megawatts in all these counties. So these are all some of the success stories. And we've really, we've achieved all these successes by banding together. Many of you in this room were instrumental in the groundbreaking effort to pass Amendment 37. We were the first state in the country to pass a renewable energy standard by popular vote, and it set the stage for everything that's happened since. Much more recently, we fought a 2-year battle to preserve net metering, which is the critical solar policy that allows you to receive fair credit for the power that you generate in excess of what you use. We had a really huge battle on our hands because Xcel wanted to devalue it and declare it a subsidy. The photo is of a rally on the Capitol steps, and the woman speaking is a young mother who is telling the crowd why she bought a solar system for her toddler's birthday. So she's a great poster woman, I think, because she spoke very eloquently about her very personal reasons for installing solar. And then last year we had another big victory when we defeated an Xcel proposal called Solar Connect that the Public Utilities Commission agreed with us was pretty anti-competitive and would have allowed Xcel to have all sorts of market power in selling what essentially was a community garden. We also gained a lot of certainty in the market by getting a renewable energy standard compliance plan, which is sort of the periodic thing that sets sort of the programmatic capacity. So those are kind of the, some of the positive things that we've accomplished here. And this is really happening, I think, in a sort of game-changing moment globally. And I bet a lot of you would agree with me that just in the last 6 months, the energy around climate action has just become way more exciting. We had the release of the Clean Power Plan in August, the most important thing the federal government's ever done to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We've had a very strong moral call to action from Pope Francis, which seems like it's being heard in some new quarters. We seem to have nations really being quite serious about reaching climate accords in Paris. And then we have sort of the whole idea that this isn't about taking jobs away. This is about creating jobs. This is about creating economic value. This is about creating a new clean energy economy that's going to bring prosperity to our future. So I think all those messages are very hopeful. But, so here's the but part. The idea is that I think people sort of have this notion, oh, we're a solar leader and the governor boasts about it. And people say, oh yeah, we're doing great. Well, we're not really doing as great as we used to be. And that's kind of really what I'm here to tell you. The solar market is really throttled by market ups and downs and stops and starts. And right now, for example, Xcel has this program called Solar Rewards, which is, sets the rewards for you if you put a solar system on your roof. And it's been going down, down, down in the amount that it pays, but it's 2 cents a kilowatt hour, so it's not much. But that was set at 2 megawatts a month. Well, it ran out. All the capacity in that program, all the capacity in the commercial program, they just ran out before even the 1st of October. So Chrissy back there is trying to sell systems at Golden Solar. What are you having to tell people, Chrissy? Wait till January?
Well, we're telling them still prepared because January 1, we're piling a bunch of stuff. Because I think it's going to sell out pretty quickly next year. So we got to be ready to file everything right away.
So, yeah, so that's sort of like, it's sort of this like, okay, you got to hurry up and, get your application in. That isn't an open market. That isn't the way to grow this as a real industry. It's this kind of mother may I game that we have to play at the PUC. Please, Xcel, can we have a little more capacity? No, no, no. And the chair of the PUC even said in a hearing, we're putting you on a budget, and we want you to stay on your budget. So there's that issue. Then there's the one that I mentioned at the outset, that the federal 30% investment tax credit for commercial projects is scheduled to go to 10% at the end of 2016. The residential 10% is scheduled to go to 0. And that's scary to a lot of people. There are a lot of predictions about what that's going to mean. But some people are saying it's going to mean half the solar jobs in the country are going to evaporate, at least for a while. And so there's efforts to extend it, but as we all know, it's hard to predict what Congress might do. So we, and when people say, oh, solar shouldn't need any subsidies, we like to point out that this one tax credit is a tiny fraction of what fossil fuels has sort of, written into the tax code forever. And then, really in Colorado, the programs that were set up to sort of meet the renewable portfolio standards, they're really kind of running their course. And we really need new programs. And so instead of that, what Xcel came up with this summer that we thought was really scary and fought very hard at the Public Utilities Commission and lost, is this thing called negative RECs. Well, renewable energy credits are supposed to give you the value of your renewable energy that you are producing, right? And so Xcel buys those from you when, you agree to connect to their system. They acquire those. Well, in the community solar program this summer, they came up with this very innovative thing where they basically ask companies to pay them for the privilege of putting systems onto the grid. And the winning bidders all did. We thought that was a really scary idea. It's sort of this whole pay-to-play model where, if you want to build a renewable energy solar garden, you have to give Excel a payment to, be one of the winning bidders. So we're still quite concerned about that. And then, there's a whole other set of challenges. Some of you may know our friends at Intermountain Rural Electric Association, which is the biggest co-op in the state, represents 250,000 people, really stretching from South Jeffco, and much of the mountainous areas around Conifer, all the way through a lot of Douglas, Park, and Teller counties. They came up with a really strange new proposal, and we actually had 50 of their members, which was amazing, show up and speak. Joe McCabe there was one of them. And we defeated the first iteration, which was blatantly anti-solar. But then they came back with this really sneaky new proposal and voted it in. And it's such a confusing rate that no one really can even explain it. And solar installers really have no clue how they're going to try to sell a system to someone and say what it's going to do for their bill, because it's a very confusing kind of a thing. Then we're also seeing more and more challenges on the code enforcement and local regulatory front. So the most recent one was in the 2014 National Electric Code. We actually fought it twice and got an extension, but now it's gone into effect, requiring a rapid disconnect for a PV system that is going to add another $1,200 basically to every system. We just have come upon a whole new issue right in this neck of the woods. So as many of you know, there's a lot of interest in solar in Jeffco, and there's a lot of new building going on between Golden and Boulder, and a lot of those Candelas developments are all solar homes, and which is great. But we also have Arvada, a solar-friendly community that's really interested in developing, actually donating land for solar gardens for its low-income residents. So they're coming up with really innovative plans for their light rail stations and wanting to have some low-income housing and wanting to have some solar gardens so those people can have solar. And Excel said, sorry, can't do that. We can't handle any more solar in Arvada until 2019, can't have any more. So I think we're going to run into those kinds of, infrastructure limitations and sort of the whole issue of the utility really controlling the whole game that I think needs some serious attention. And then I mentioned that last year we defeated a Solar Connect proposal. Well, guess what? They're shopping a new one to cities, and they're going to come back, and so we'll have to go through that again. So we really feel as an industry sometimes I feel like every day I wake up and someone new is trying to kill solar. And it's kind of remarkable because of all the positive things that I talked about earlier, all the great reasons why we should be doing so much more solar and really committing to this. And instead, we're just seeing, attack after attack after attack in these rather complicated, narrow regulatory ways that most people really don't understand and are really hard to explain because they're complicated. But each one of these things, is a direct threat to, the livelihoods of our members. So that's why we really need bold new initiatives to maintain our Colorado solar leadership. I think that I was at a panel this morning with State Senator Matt Jones. Some of you know him. He represents Louisville and Longmont. And he said, losing our solar leadership is really bad for our brand. Our brand in Colorado, should be solar leadership. It should be clean energy. It's It's what we're about. We shouldn't be ceding this place to all these other states that are doing so much more than we are. And so we're really trying to get a conversation going with a much broader kind of constituency about the need for some bold new programs. So these are some of our ideas. One is I think there's a lot of consensus around low-income solar. So low-income people have been paying into the RESA, the renewable energy sort of pot that has provided money for incentives and haven't gotten a lot out. We think it makes so much more sense to be building community solar projects for low-income people rather than what's going on now, which is a lot of fundraising to help them pay their high utility bills. And that money goes straight into Excel's pocket and does absolutely nothing to help them, overcome the problem. Whereas if they start to get free energy from the sun, it would actually make a difference. So we're working with a variety of partner groups on that. We're also working on the commercial market is especially broken, largely because of some complicated issues about demand rates and how commercial customers get compensated. And we think that it would make so much sense for every high-rise in downtown Denver to have solar on top, but there's hardly any of it. And the reason is really because the rate structure does not make it advantageous for commercial customers to have those size systems. And so we think there's really a lot more that can be done in general with rates. Other states are starting to do very creative rate design. So here's the analogy I like to use. I covered as a reporter the transformation of the telecommunications industry. So I covered, the monopoly bells merging with cable and the rise of the internet and all that sort of wonderful, emerging economic vitality that came out of that competition. So the analogy I use is, I bet if we asked every single person in this room what your cell phone rate plan was, I bet every single person virtually would have a different answer. Because in that market, which is free and unfettered, they figured out ways to give you what you want. And you can have more of this and less of that, and you can pay less and have less, you can have whatever you want, because that's what they're in the business of providing. So contrast that idea of rates, of a whole lot of choices and a whole lot of different options with your electricity bill, where you just pay one rate for every single kilowatt hour. Excel does have finally a summer rate where if you use a whole lot in the summer, you pay a little more. But really, if there was some sort of serious rate design, it would look at time of use. And that's a way to basically incentivize you to turn on your dishwasher when you go to bed at 11 o'clock at night rather than at 6 p.m. when everyone else is turning everything on. And that's just one example, but it also would be a way to incentivize you to have solar panels which produce power near the peak time of use, that is when the utility most needs the most power. But it also might incentivize you to get a little storage, so that if you had a little battery storage and you could push that solar use to the exact peak, it would be even more valuable. So there's a whole lot of just creative ways to think about all this, and it just is not, it's just not really working that well to have a regulatory structure that's been around almost unchanged for 100 years, and this sort of PUC where one of my favorite lawyers says it's kind of like the Middle Ages where only the high priest can talk to God, and it really does feel that way. I don't know how many of you have been there, but it's a strange world. And I think that if we as citizens want to be sort of taking a broader interest in these issues, I really think that's a good place to start. And so we're really working in a variety of venues. We'll keep on working on a variety of dockets at the PUC on rates. There will be a rate case, and we're hoping to advance some of this idea of a little more creative thinking about rates and different ways to incentivize behaviors. There's also going to be sort of a whole broader electric resource plan coming up. and there's going to be a new renewable energy compliance plan. So these are all, like litigated dockets, almost like lawsuits that, we'll have to engage with our extremely limited budget. And we're continuing to work with local governments on solar-friendly communities, which has been a really wonderful partnership and, a way to sort of continue to engage with them on more solar. And then the Clean Power Plan, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, the stakeholder process is really just getting going, but there's going to be a lot of chances for engagement on that. And so, there's no shortage of things to get done. What there is a shortage of solar citizens. So this is the new movement or community that we've just launched. In fact, the Facebook page I created less than a week ago, and our newsletter went out on Tuesday. So we really thought that what we need is to translate the roughly 80% of the public that wants more solar energy, that tells pollsters, we love solar, we want more solar. But, the issues between here and there, quickly devolve into, kind of complicated, difficult policy questions. And so we really think that we need more people to sort of get engaged, to learn, to care, to be willing to take action. And so we're trying to build this database. We don't even in this state know how many people have solar. We don't know where it is. We don't know anything because the utilities sort of have the data and don't really share much. And so we're really trying to get some of our member companies to help us reach their customers. So all you have to do is sign up at gosolarcolorado.org and just sort of, get involved in some of these conversations. And so I hope you will all do that. You can sign up outside. And here is a picture of our first Go Solar Colorado fundraiser at John Avenson's house last summer. And so those are the URLs for our various websites where you can learn lots more about all this. And with that, I'd be happy to take some questions.
We'll start with